Well, hey everybody, this is Mike Anuzzi at musicaccelerator.com, and today I want to introduce someone who became a great friend of mine almost instantly when we toured the US with singer-songwriter Tyrone Wells. He taught me a lot about life on the road. I've seen his career grow over the last few years as he has toured on Maroon 5's recent Arena World Tour, working with Owl City as their production manager and front of house manager. Earlier this year, we ran into each other at NAMM, and I got to see the Pensado's Place panel with him. It was pretty cool seeing you down there. It's such a pleasure talking with you today, Luke. Everybody, please give a warm welcome to Luke Meek. Luke, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Busy. Life is busy, but all is good.
Awesome. Let's dive right into this then. Luke, what sparked your interest in music?
I don't know what sparked my interest other than I just grew up loving music and, all types, I think everybody loves music to a point, but I just really liked it. And then when it come time to decide what I want to do, get out of high school and go to college and stuff, cause at the time I guess, and still to this day, I don't play any instruments. So I wasn't trying to be a musician or in a band or anything. I just was trying to figure out what I could do every day for the rest of my life. And, so music kind of came to mind, and then I just started researching what jobs are in music when you're not a musician.
Awesome. Wow, that's great. So it started early on and you just kept going with it.
Yeah, that's really what happened. Like I said, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, what I was going to go to college for. And I was like, well, I like music. Maybe I could work in a recording studio. And then I started looking around at colleges or schools or whatever that you can go to learn how to work in a recording studio. And so I found one, went to school for that. And then once I got out of school, it was like, okay, now what? So by default, because I was from the Midwest, small town Midwest, there's a lot more clubs, music clubs than there are recording studios. So by default, I just kind of started working in those.
Yeah, so you kind of focused in the live world.
Yeah, and I always thought going to school that I would be, live sound's not for me. I like the studios and it's, cool vibe or whatever. And so I just always wanted to and thought that I would do that out of school. But then just to, keep anything going, any, knowledge base going, I wanted to do whatever I could in audio. And that was mainly, I did a little bit of stuff in the studios, like interning, but mainly, I had a lot more opportunity to do club stuff, live sound. So I started doing that by default just because it was what I could get at the time.
Nice. Wow, that sounds great. So I was going to ask you, how did you learn your skill? It seems like you kind of took the approach of education in school, education in the real world, hopping into internships, kind of anything and everything you can. Is that right?
Anything and everything. I mean, yeah, definitely. I did go to audio school and got a base there, which back when I went to audio school, it was a lot of still kind of the mentality of you don't need to go to school for it. You can just learn on the job kind of thing. But I didn't want to spend a bunch of years, starting from the bottom and working my way up. I wanted to at least go in working, if I was going to start at the bottom, work my way up, I at least wanted to go in with a knowledge base. So I went to school for it. And then I look at it as, I always tell people, getting out of audio school is like getting your driver's license. You know how to drive, you have your license, you know how to drive, but you're by no means good at it. And you still probably should work with other people to get better at it. And that's kind of how audio was for me, is I had a knowledge base and I could do it. But, whenever I was behind a console mixing a band, I was nervous, and I had still, obviously it's a never ending thing. You just keep learning. So, I started with audio school, but then from there, it's really just grinding it out and doing, like you said, doing everything I could to get better and learn and, whatever, whether it's learning the gear and in that side of the industry or just learning, the how to work with people and stuff like that side of the industry as well. There's a lot to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say this to a lot of my friends, people ask me what steps that I took after graduation. It's kind of like one of those careers, if you're going to study something in the music or arts world, you don't just graduate from a university and get a diploma and then become that. I went to school also and I got a music degree, and upon graduation, it's kind of like, yeah, like you said, you get your driver's license. That's just the start. Now you got to get in the car and drive. So that's really great advice.
Yeah, you're not going to get your driver's license and go race cars. You're going to get your driver's license and then grip the steering wheel pretty tight for a while until you really get comfortable. So that's, but it's never ending. Like, I will, as long as I remain in the industry, I will continue to learn and grow and get better, which is pretty much true for anyone. I mean, in any career, probably. I mean, you never stop learning, at least if you're eager and want to move forward and advance.
Yeah, especially in changing industry too, that there's so much up to date stuff. I kind of want to keep going with that following of college, that following that post. You had your education. So what was that transition basically becoming an actual person that is in the music industry? Like, how did you get your start in the music industry? Maybe your first gig or first, this is my job.
Yeah, exactly. So what I did, like I said, I did a few interning things at studios and stuff, but they really weren't panning out. I really wasn't feeling it. So my first gig is I moved to a college town that had a handful of music venues, small clubs, like 400 or 500 cap rooms and stuff like that. And I just started calling. I moved to town, I started calling around. I was like, hey, I'm here. I'm an audio guy. I want to mix. And of course, varying degrees of responses. Some people wouldn't call me back. Some people were like, yeah, cool, keep trying, we'll see what happens. But one guy was like, sure, come in. So I went in and I started working with him, he would be the guy, and then I would kind of help him pass the stage or whatever, making $25 a night. And then eventually got to be where, he was comfortable with me, and I would do some nights on my own, and, eventually you get paid more and more. So that's kind of how I really started cutting my teeth and learning how to, ring out a wedge and just all the random things and troubleshoot. Honestly, a huge part of learning in the audio industry is learning how to troubleshoot and be quick and efficient at that. So anyways, I started at this little club, and then, that was just like a part-time thing. I had a regular day job, and then I would go at night a couple nights a week and do that until I got up to the point where I moved to Denver and I started working at a production company, but it was the same thing there. Like, all right, I'm going to move to Denver. And so I started calling up anybody there and just like, hey, I'm an audio guy. Are you hiring? Will you hire me? Whatever. And same thing. Some people wouldn't call back. Some people were like, yeah, but this is a bad time. And so I just moved there knowing that something was going to work out. So I started, then I got a gig there at this production company doing all kinds of stuff, like weddings, like corporate gigs and all kinds of stuff. I learned everything. Backline, I learned audio. I learned more about audio. I learned, about power and lighting and all that stuff. And then eventually realized I wanted to travel more. And so I, reconnected with a band that I had met at my, when I had that first house gig. It was like, hey, I want to travel. And they just be like, hey, well, we need a front of house guy. You want to come with us? And so I did that. And then ever since then, which was 2005, I've been a freelance guy, and my learning, all my training and work from there on out has just been being an audio engineer or, being a touring guy at different levels. Sometimes just a front of house guy. A lot of times these days I'll production manage and run front of house.
Awesome.
So that's the very short version of how I got to where I am right now.
Yeah, so you definitely, you pounded the pavement, you hit the ground running, and you kept going. That is amazing.
Yeah, I think that that's really the way to do it. Is like, yeah, you can go to school, and even if you're top in your class, and you might get out of school and get a gig right away. But even if you do, the really way to do it, to hone your craft and really learn things, is to just grind it out and just hit the pavement and take every gig especially early on, take any gig you can get, because even if it's not a glamorous rock and roll band that you're working for, maybe you're doing a corporate thing or something, you're still learning. You're like I said, you're learning troubleshooting, and you're continuing your education, but you're also building your network and stuff like that. I think in my opinion, being a guy coming out of the Midwest, I have that Midwest work ethic, which is just like, nobody owes you anything. You have to go out and earn it, and earn it, learn your skill, get good at it. Learn, hard work, put your time in.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's really interesting too, because early on it sounds like your day-to-day life was that pounding the pavement. What's your day-to-day life like today, like these days when you're on tour?
Man, day-to-day life. I have kind of two different modes of that day-to-day life for me. One being when I'm on tour on the road, and then one being when I'm at home. Because regardless of where I'm at, what I'm doing, I'm probably always working. Like if I'm on tour, my day-to-day life is like, get up early. And even the tour depends. Something like if I do a tour, I'm just production managing, that'll be a little different. But in general, get up early, load in, set up, tune the room, and then do all production related things, which, make sure the bus gets parked, make sure the crew, that you're hiring for the day is working and stuff like that. And working with the local venue about, expenses and stuff like that. And then it's like run a sound check, get ready for show, make sure the crew is all in place and doing their thing. So, a day on the road is crazy busy, pretty much nonstop and not a lot of sleep. And then, my day to day, my daily routine at home is a bit different because I might not be working as far as like doing a show that day, but I'm usually working and advancing, getting stuff ready for an upcoming tour, which may be like, making a stage plot, making an info list, making sure the rider's up to date, backline rider, working on getting production rentals in order for the upcoming tour, getting a bus locked down, getting rehearsal space locked down, and then creating a, schedule for the rehearsal so the band knows when they're expected to be there and stuff like that. So like my daily routine when I'm home is, get up, go to the gym at 6 a.m, come home, have some breakfast and coffee, and then get to work, which is, I usually will sit on the computer all day and do make phone calls.
Completely different lifestyle, huh?
Completely different because it's nice to just sit and chill and at home, make coffee and do work and do that. But I also get a little fancy and stir crazy, so it's nice to get back on the road and do that crazy routine as well.
Right, and kind of going on with what your day-to-day life is like on the road, I could attest to how efficient your running of shows is. I've seen it firsthand, just knowing where every cable goes, where every outlet is in the room, and getting, weeks in advance or days in advance, or as you're rolling up to the venue, just knowing where we're parking kind of thing. It's pretty amazing to see all the different things that you have to think about as a production manager, and then switching your brain over to running front of house. So that's pretty cool to think about. Luke, I want to move on to, are there any current projects you have or gigs that you have going on or coming up that you're excited about?
Yeah, there's always something. Right now I'm kind of prepping the artist that I'm going to be working with this spring and summer is an artist named Andrew McMahon, who he was originally the lead guy for something corporate, and then he switched over and did Jack's Mannequin, and now he's doing Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness. So I'll be running front of house for him and production management as well. We have a couple one-offs this May here where we're doing, some corporate things, but we're doing Bottle Rock and Napa. So we're doing a handful of things. So I'm kind of prepping that and getting ready for that. And simultaneously getting ready for our summer tour, which will be opening for the Weezer and Panic at the Disco tour this summer, and doing a bunch of sheds. So kind of working, like I said earlier, kind of getting everything in order, like backline and stage plot stuff, but also working with the Weezer and Panic production team as far as implementing, our show into their world and getting all that sorted out.
Takes a lot of details. That's so cool. I'm so excited for your tour. I hope I get to see you at least in person on one of these shows. So
that'd be great.
I guess I wanted to ask you a kind of a final question. Well, maybe a final question. I have a couple more, and I'll throw you a curveball just to keep you on your toes today. But what's the best piece of advice that you can offer someone, or that somebody has offered you into getting into or sustaining a career in the music industry? Or just
that's
in
kind
life?
Of a tough one. Well, there's plenty in life, but let's keep it to audio for now. And I don't know that I don't know that I can think of anything, one thing that somebody told me, but I can just say one thing that I kind of tell everybody our young people trying to get in the industry or whatever, because it's tough. Everybody says, how do you get into it? Well, this is how I did it, but so many people have so many different ways of how they got into it, or reasons that they got into it or whatever. So I think my piece of advice to people is, like I said earlier, is just like, nobody owes you anything, and you really have to get in the industry and earn it, and work hard and put the hours in and put the time in and learn your skill, and do that, because nobody's going to just give it to you. And if you come in and you might have all the hookups and ends in the world, but if you don't know your job, then you're not going to get very far. And I think the other thing that I really kind of stress to people is, like, be someone that people want to hang around with, because when you're on tour, you're spending 18 to 20 hours a day with these people sometimes, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the day and whatever, but you're spending a chunk of time with these people, whether you're in a venue, you're setting and catering together, you're on a bus, you're hanging out after the show. Like, if people don't, like, you can be really good at what you do, but if people don't want to hang around you because, you don't have a good personality, or you're mean or whatever, you're rude, then, you're not going to get so many gigs, because it's like, there's plenty of people that do what you do well that also are cool to be around. So, be that person that people want to hang around with.
Absolutely.
That's it. Work hard and be someone that people want to be around.
Absolutely. You kind of become a family really quickly on tour, huh?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. Cool. Well, I want to leave it with one curveball question, Luke. Thank you so much for your time today. For all the gear nuts out there, what is your go-to piece of gear that you rely on regularly?
Oh, man. I would say for me, because, I've always said there's kind of, people that get in the industry for different reasons. They get into audio for a few different reasons. Some of them get into it because they're like me and they just like music, and so they kind of go that way. And then some of them get into it because they're kind of electronics geeks and get into all the, the electronics and the newest, greatest pieces of gear and all that. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely in it for the music side of it more than the electronic side of it. Like, I read the industry magazines and keep up on the gear because I feel like I need to, but I'm not like a super gearhead. So for me, I mean, I guess my go-to piece of gear, if I'm only able to take one thing. In fact, the last tour that I did, it was a small tour, and I was only able to take one main piece of gear, and it was a console, which for me is the Avid Venue family of consoles, which is like the SD48 and the Profile.
Awesome.
So for me, that's it. I know some of the other consoles are coming up that are, becoming more of an industry standard, like the Digico stuff, which I think is great. For me, I'm still sticking with the Profiles and the Venue stuff because I'm most familiar with it. I'm fluent on it, and I like, being a production manager as well as doing audio. I don't always have a lot of time each day to troubleshoot and problem solve and come up with new ideas. So I'm like, if I can go, do production manager for a while and come in and do what I need to do on this console because I'm fluent on it,
right?
And then that's the one I want to use. And so I like it for that reason. Partially it's just a selfish reason is that I know it the best. But I do think it's a decent console. It's got a lot of good attributes. And I also like it because it's now kind of, at least for now, it's kind of the industry standard for festivals. So I can take my file, and drop it into most anywhere I go, and drop it on the console, and it'll be there. As opposed to if I had an old, Yamaha file or something, maybe for like a 5D, I might not be quite as lucky because you're starting to see, probably have for a while actually seen Profile stuff out front of house and monitors a lot more common, like at festivals, than you would most other things. So for those reasons, that's my go-to piece of gear, I guess.
Awesome. I think it's really important, kind of what you said was, it doesn't matter the piece of gear, it matters that you know how to use it quickly and efficiently and to the best of that gear's ability as well. You have a lot of different things to think about while you're on the road. You have to be as efficient as possible. The day-to-day life is always something exciting to do. And Luke, it's been such a privilege and honor talking with you today, discussing all of your experience. Thank you so much for sharing it with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I hope somebody got something good out of it.
All right, guys. Well, one more time, Luke, Meek, everybody, this is Mike Anuzzi at musicaccelerator.com. We'll see you again soon.